Vince McMahon is no stranger to lawsuits. He has had plenty of them filed against him over the years, even in just the last few months. There was another one filed the other day trying to block the Endeavor deal to merge WWE and UFC that I'm sure is going to go nowhere. But there was another lawsuit filed this week in New York against WWE, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and other executives, including members of the creative team, by a former WWE writer that alleges she was discriminated against and fired for objecting to, quote, offensively racist and stereotypical jargon in scripts for black performers. Her name is Brittany Abrams. She was let go 2 years ago after her complaints were ignored, and then she had the audacity of taking home a commemorative WrestleMania chair, which she insinuates is a cover reason for the real reason that she was fired. In reading through all of this, and I'm going to go through all of it again here with you, it is disturbing that even today, this is how people operate in this company. I can't say it's a surprise. You know, you ever hear the expression, the fish rots from the head? WWE is the fish, and Vince McMahon is the head. He created this type of culture, or he allowed it to exist. He encouraged this type of stuff. And now he's probably going to pay a lot of money to make it go away, because that's what he does when any problem comes up. You just throw money at it. WWE having a history of racist and stereotypical gimmicks is something almost as old as the company itself. You know, when I was a kid, it was Slick eating fried chicken out of a bucket. It was Akeem dancing around as a white guy pretending to be black, or whatever their version of a black man was. As a kid, I laughed at it because of how stupid it was. The guy literally, he came out in this blue and yellow outfit and had a picture of the continent of Africa on his back. Again, it was so stupid, but that doesn't mean it was any less offensive when it was pitched. If you watched that at the time and you were offended by it, you would have a right to be. They brought Tony Atlas back and called him Saba Simba. Roddy Piper went half black at WrestleMania for his match with Bad News Brown. The Mexicools years later came to the ring riding on a lawnmower. Triple H cut a promo on Booker T talking about his nappy hair and how people like you don't win world championships, and then he went out and proved him right at WrestleMania. At least there you could say they told the story of somebody playing the race card getting his comeuppance in the end, but they never even did that. I could be here all day if I was talking about all the racist and stereotypical shit that we have seen in wrestling in general over the years, right? Pinata on a pole in WCW, Russo booking Okada in TNA to look like Kato from the fucking Green Hornet. There's plenty of examples, with and without Vince McMahon. But as I read through this, as I was reading through this entire thing, I shook my head and I said, yep, sounds like WWE, all right. Her complaint states that she was hired as a temporary employee writer for SmackDown in November of 2020. And after her work was well received by executives in the company, she was offered a full-time position in May of 2021. What I am reading you are the key portions of this suit. Not all of it, it's 31 pages long, but the more disturbing part, the more troublesome parts, right? This is care of Mike Johnson from PW Insider who laid this all out. In the lawsuit, Abrams noted that it was suggested by Bruce Pritchard that she write vignettes for both Raw and SmackDown. She began shadowing this man by the name of Chris Dunn. So whenever the name Dunn is mentioned, do not confuse Chris with Kevin, two different people. But it says here she began shadowing Chris Dunn, who is white, and who was writing vignettes for Bianca Belair. Said scene included offensively racist and stereotypical jargon which plaintiff found objectionable. By way of example, according to the script, Dunn intended Ms. Belair, the said black female wrestler, to say, don't make me take off my earrings and beat your ass. Which are lines based upon cruel, ugly stereotypes of dark-skinned black women. Plaintiff asserts that Ms. Belair uttering that line was, and still is, negatively stereotypical of race and gender. And plaintiff found it offensive and still finds it offensive. Prior to the writing of this scene, many of the WWE writers commonly complained that they did not know what to do with Ms. Belair. As a result, plaintiff undertook researching her background and discovered a fascinating family tree, including an aunt who helped desegregate her high school in the 1960s, and an uncle whose contributions to science were world-renowned. Dunn allowed plaintiff to write a first draft of Ms. Belair's scene, so plaintiff included positive references to her rich family history and sent it to Dunn for feedback. Dunn told plaintiff that the draft looks great. I'm going to make some edits and submit it to Callahan. That would be Ryan Callahan, who is now the VP for SmackDown. He's one of the defendants that she named, one of the many defendants that she named in this lawsuit. However, Dunn subjected her draft to substantial editing, including inserting the said racial case. That same night, plaintiff complained about the racially offensive and discriminatory nature of the scene to one of her WWE superiors, defendant Callahan. Plaintiff emailed Callahan and said, I know I'm new. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or step on Dunn's or anyone's toes, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ms. Belair's scene includes racial jargon and offensive stereotypes, particularly her go-home line. Plaintiff also requested clarification for protocol on moving forward with her complaint. In a conversation with Ms. Belair the following day, that would be Bianca, informed plaintiff that she told Dunn 3 different times that I don't want to say that line, but he never listens to me. He puts that line in every week. Ms. Belair said the script's discriminatory lines made her look ghetto. Plaintiff relayed this information to Dunn and politely offered to edit the line. However, despite her complaint, defendants failed and/or refused to take any immediate or appropriate corrective action in response. Plaintiff never received any form of response from Callahan, verbally or by email, and Callahan never spoke to plaintiff about her email or the lines or the scene. Additionally, WWE's failure and/or refusal to address the plaintiff's complaint emboldened WWE employees, including Dunn and Callahan, to further discriminate against and to retaliate against plaintiff in response to her protected conduct. By way of example, WWE kept the discriminatory line in the script. Plaintiff was scheduled to shadow Dunn on 2 scenes that day, one of which was said scene with Ms. Belair. However, halfway through the day, Dunn informed plaintiff that she would now shadow Callahan. When plaintiff requested Dunn's assistance, he told plaintiff, you handle it, it's your scene now. Callahan showed up for the taping of plaintiff's scenes about 90 seconds before they went live, and he never once mentioned the plaintiff's email. Defendant switched plaintiff's assignment and made her shadow WWE's lead writer, who was not present until the show filmed live. The switch in assignment was due to plaintiff's race, and gender had the purpose and effect of sabotaging her career with WWE, and to serve as a pretext for retaliatory adverse actions. Defendants did not provide the plaintiff with any training on what needed to be done during the live broadcast. Defendants' actions were clearly discriminatory, as similarly situated white male WWE employees are not treated in this manner. Defendants' actions in this regard were done to humiliate, intimidate, and undermine the plaintiff's performance, as she had never been asked, or tasked rather, with this responsibility and had no idea of the new role's requirements. So you have Bianca Belair, who headlined WrestleMania that year in 2021. And won the SmackDown Women's Championship. She was already one of the top female stars in the company even then. Not someone who, you could argue who was upset about her position on the card, right? Or bitter about her push. She was already getting a big push. Claiming that the writers would not listen to her when she repeatedly told them that she did not want to say this one line because she thought it made her look ghetto. They kept suggesting it to her anyway. It seems to me that if there's a line in the script that one of your performers finds offensive, and they come to you about it, after the first time you would stop putting it in the script and come up with a different line. Abrams alleges that following plaintiff's complaint, defendants increased the intensity of their discriminatory misconduct, including deliberately subjecting the plaintiff to a number of racist pitches. One of those alleged racist pitches involved WWE performer Reggie, now in NXT as Scripps, with the idea that he would dress in complete drag with wig and tights to partner with Carmella in matches against other female tag team partners. She noted that Vince and Stephanie McMahon, as well as WWE's Ed Koskey, were in a Slack app thread about the pitch, and it wasn't until a white creative team member, Andrea Lissenberger, pointed out the negative nature of the idea, observing that putting a straight black man in drag might perpetuate harmful stereotypes that would offend viewers, that WWE dropped the discriminatory pitch. By way of another example, WWE forced wrestler Apollo Crews to speak with a Nigerian accent just because of his Nigerian lineage. Apollo Crews is a black Nigerian-born male. Abrams claimed that she emailed Ryan Callahan and complained about the offensive nature of the requirement for Apollo to speak with a stereotypical and exaggerated Nigerian accent, but he failed and/or refused to take corrective action, which required Abrams to be forced to require Apollo to speak with a racially artificial Nigerian accent. Abrams also alleges that in 2021, Callahan pitched a gimmick for Australian talent Shane Thorne, described as a Caucasian male wrestler with a hunting gimmick who would hunt a black male wrestler for fun, with the idea of playing off crocodile hunter, but instead of crocodiles, he hunts people. The lawsuit claims subsequently a storyline was pitched by Callahan where Shane would capture Reggie, capture Reggie, and constantly beat him up, but Reggie would always escape after being captured. The lawsuit alleges holding Reggie captive in cages was also discussed. Plaintiff found Callahan's pitch highly offensive and objectionable. Plaintiff again objected to her superior's racially motivated misconduct, specifically stating that a gimmick where a white man hunting a black African-American man for sport is racist. Callahan laughed and sarcastically responded, "Oh, what? Is that a bad thing?" Callahan's comments and conduct had the purpose and effect of humiliating and intimidating the plaintiff and dramatically altered her work environment for the worse. As the WWE creative team's sole person of color, plaintiff was devastated that none of her white Caucasian co-workers stepped in to complain about this discriminatory and offensive pitch. Afterwards, plaintiff spoke with Mr. Parisi, I don't know if it's Parisi or Parisi, we'll say Parisi, a white Caucasian WWE writer who revealed that he agreed with plaintiff that the pitch was racist, but he felt too nervous to speak up about it in front of Callahan. However, despite plaintiff's complaint, defendants refused to address the complaint and instead continued the discriminatory and retaliatory campaign unabated. Abrams also alleges that senior WWE writer Jen Pepperman, who is white and is also another defendant, by the way, named in this suit, discriminatorily treated plaintiff and other black and African-American WWE employees poorly compared to their similarly situated white Caucasian counterparts. The complaint alleges that Pepperman would just snap at Abrams and other African-Americans, deliberately berate them in front of everybody else, that Pepperman had zero patience for Abrams and others, and that her tone and countenance routinely differed from when she spoke to or engaged with plaintiff's white Caucasian counterparts. The lawsuit claims Pepperman's comments and conduct had the purpose and effect of humiliating and intimidating her, and their severity and pervasiveness dramatically altered plaintiff's work environment for the worse. At a different time, plaintiff received a call from WWE Human Resources representatives. They said, "It was brought to our attention that you called some pitches racist, and I wanted to know if it was directed at you or a part of a direction for a storyline." Plaintiff told them it was for a storyline, but that it came from WWE lead writer Callahan, so it really should not have been said once, let alone twice, no matter serious or in jest. Plaintiff told them that it was an offensive joke. However, WWE Human Resources kept repeating, "But was it said about you?" WWE never agreed that it shouldn't have been said at all by someone of authority. WWE also never asked if plaintiff was okay after hearing those racist and sexist pitches. But then it only gets worse here. The suit also goes into detail about the alleged conduct of Callahan during a storyline pitch for a love triangle involving Mansoor, Aaliyah, and Angel Garza, which is a storyline that never came to be on television. In or around November of 2021, a WWE writer, Mr. Zach Hyatt, admitted to plaintiff and another black female WWE writer, Ms. Silvers, that he was afraid to critique his group of black wrestlers. Plaintiff and Miss Silvers spoke to the black performers directly, who expressed feeling unheard and misunderstood culturally, and who thanked Plaintiff and Miss Silvers for their compassionate approach to writing for black and other minority characters. Shortly thereafter, Plaintiff and Miss Silvers proceeded to share this information with their WWE lead writers. In or around late November 2021, racially discriminatory comments were casually made by plaintiff's white male Caucasian lead writer Callahan about a Muslim wrestler. Miss Silvers and plaintiff, the only black writers on the team at the time, were tasked to pitch a love storyline between wrestlers Aaliyah, Mansoor, and Angel Garza, who were both Muslim. Miss Silvers and plaintiff pitched that Mansoor has a secret that he is keeping from Aaliyah. Callahan disagreed with the secret that Miss Silvers and plaintiff wanted for the character, and it's not mentioned here what that secret would have been. Instead, Callahan suggested, how about his secret is he's behind the 9/11 attacks? Now, mind you, Mansoor was 6 years old when the 9/11 attacks happened. Ms. Silvers nervously laughed and said, let's not do that. Let's talk about the other part of this pitch. Callahan said, oh, I guess you're the lead writer now. Ms. Silvers again laughed nervously and said, for this one moment here, so we can talk about something else. Following this, whenever a writer would ask Callahan a question, he would reply, ask her, she's the lead writer now. There is not a chance in hell that ever would have ended up on television. And again, I have to assume he was saying that as some fucking dumb joke. But if he was serious, there's no way that ever would have ended up on television, because I am sure that would have gone over so well with their Saudi partners who pay them millions of dollars every year that they would blame their one Saudi-born talent for the worst terror attack in American history. Although it does make you wonder if there's any connection with Mustafa Ali, who was feuding with Mansoor at the time, suddenly disappearing from television around that same time, getting into a reported shouting match with Vince McMahon over some sort of creative issue, and then later on going on Twitter and asking for his release. Maybe one has nothing to do with the other, but you start connecting some dots and it makes you wonder. Whether it ever made TV or not, the fact that it was even mentioned is disgusting. I already thought working on the WWE creative team was the worst job in the world. The stress of it, having to work for a fucking lunatic, the level of turnover in that position, the people who come and go. I mean, why would anybody want to subject themselves to that? I wasn't even taking into consideration some of the people that you would have to work with and take orders from when I used to talk about what a shitty job being in WWE creative probably was. This just puts it in a whole new light. Callahan's comments and conduct in this regard were clearly discriminatory, given plaintiffs' similarly situated white Caucasian counterparts were not treated in this manner. Additionally, Heller shared a sexist pitch for a Muslim female wrestler wherein the said female wrestler lacked authority over her own mind and body. Again, Miss Silvers and plaintiff created a love storyline between Aaliyah, Mansoor, and Angel Garza. In this pitch, Aaliyah and Mansoor were meant to fall in love, while a jealous Angel tries to break them up. The pitch made Aaliyah appear intelligent and confident in herself and her desires, containing Aaliyah speaking up for herself against both Angel and Mansoor and having her love and affection earned. Miss Silvers and plaintiff pitched this storyline to Heller, who expressed confusion about Aaliyah and her choices, particularly her never wanting to be with Angel, who was the obvious villain in this story. Heller was also confused that Aaliyah wasn't crying on the stairs after her breakup with Mansoor. Heller then counterpitched that plaintiff make the storyline a love triangle, objectifying and bimbofying Aaliyah. Heller's sexist counterpitch included Angel being forward and aggressive in his efforts to date her, Aaliyah being easily swayed by Angel's evil tactics, and Aaliyah being confused about which guy she should date, oscillating between the two men until the end of the storyline. Plaintiff spoke up and asked, doesn't that take away Aaliyah's agency? Plaintiff told Heller that she wanted to make a pitch that was more feminist, especially because Aaliyah's character is already marketed as being super hot. Plaintiff, along with a number of her co-workers, including Ms. Silvers and Mr. Barbash, also complained about the discriminatory nature of their lead writer's comments. Rather, in response to plaintiff's conduct, defendants intensified their campaign of retaliatory adverse employment actions. By way of example, Lubrano, that would be Christine Lubrano, the Senior Vice President of Creative Operations for WWE, also named as a defendant in this lawsuit, met with plaintiff and Ms. Silvers and deliberately downplayed Heller's and Callahan's discriminatory remarks by claiming that she heard it was a joke, and wacky things are said in the writer's room all the time. When plaintiff indicated that it doesn't make it okay, Lubrano responded, "I know, but look at the waves that we're making in this company. 4 years ago, no woman worked on the writers' team." I always used to say on the podcast, they have an army of writers, and there's no reason why they can't hire some female writers to work on the creative side with the female wrestlers. You section it out. I used to talk about that all the time. Why is that so hard? Lubrano followed up and told plaintiff that she was doing a great job and that Pritchard, Mr. McMahon, and Ms. McMahon love her writing, but plaintiff should be careful to pick and choose her battles. Abrams alleges that she was fired by the company for taking a commemorative WrestleMania chair home, and that in the years before she made her complaints, WWE did not subject employees to disciplinary action in response to taking the removable temporary seating WrestleMania chairs from the events. Abrams' version of that is that another writer asked Ryan Callahan if the writers could each help themselves to a chair. Pepperman told the writers' room that they could indeed do that, but they had to wait until after the show to take it. It was even noted that employees could ask the company's production team to ship the chair home for them. Numerous writers, including Abrams, took chairs, but in or around the early hours of the next morning, plaintiff's supervisor emailed the writing team instructing people to return the chairs and demanding why they thought taking them was a wise choice. Abrams was terminated on April 7th, 2022, alleging that it is clear that despite plaintiff's excellent work performance, defendants actually terminated her employment based on her complaints about the defendant's racial discrimination and due to her race and gender. You know, going through these ideas here, just think, these are the ideas that we know about. Imagine the ones we don't. Jon Moxley once mentioned an idea that he was pitched that was so offensive he would never repeat it to anybody outside of those closest to him. And I don't think it takes much to offend Jon Moxley. I cannot even begin to think of what that idea could have been. But she is seeking damages to be determined at trial and to be compensated for loss of past and future income and other benefits of employment, as well as mental anguish, emotional distress, humiliation, embarrassment, stress, anxiety, loss of self-esteem, loss of self-confidence, and emotional pain. But here's the part that I don't understand. It also in the suit says that she is seeking reinstatement. I am really hoping that that is some sort of technicality that refers to back pay or something, because why would you allege all of these horrible things and then want to go back and work for that same company? Getting rid of one or two bad apples on the writing team is not going to change the culture in this company. This goes straight up to the top. This goes straight up to the leadership that put them there in the first place. And she wants to go back? And thinks that by winning a judgment against them and working for them again, that her life there is going to be better? How naive is this woman? It's in the filing. I mean, plain as day, 24 pages in, plaintiff claims unlawful constructive and or unlawful actual discharge and also seeks reinstatement. Any legal minds want to chime in? If that means something else, I sure would love to know. None of the parties involved or named have been served with the lawsuit yet. Second week in a row that I have said those exact words, by the way. None of the parties involved have been served with the suit. 2 weeks in a row, I've said those exact words after I talked about that Raka Khan lawsuit. I can't speak to what the individual writers are going to do here. Because again, she's not just suing the company, she's suing individual people as well. But I think Vince McMahon is going to do what Vince McMahon always does when presented with a problem that he does not want to deal with. He is going to throw money at it and make it go away. I don't think he wants his Raw Women's Champion, for example, called as a witness in a civil suit against them. This will be settled quietly. His buddy Rupert Murdoch just threw $787 million at a very big problem to make it go away. What do they say? Birds of a feather? Endeavor is going to want things nice and tidy by the time that deal goes through. They're not going to want this hanging over their heads.